2015 was one of the biggest and best years in UFC history, and 2016 is shaping up to be even bigger. Over the next hour, we'll get you set for a great year and preview some of the most anticipated fights on the calendar. The Dominator is back, but has he bit off more than he can chew in the champ TJ Dillashaw?
Nothing's changed. I just look forward to beating up more alpha fails.
Can Daniel Cormier ruin the return of Jon Jones? Will Fabricio Verdum prove that UFC 188 was no fluke?
I have a big dream. I got it today.
Is Rowdy Ronda Rousey ready to get revenge against the preacher's daughter? Can the notorious Conor McGregor follow up on his historic 2015?
This is the new era of the fighting Irish, and I brought my home country with me.
And which up-and-comers will make names for themselves in the new year? We'll break it all down, give our bold predictions, and hear some of the fighters' New Year's resolutions.
2016, I want to just grow further. I want to get better.
My New Year's resolution for 2016 is to go out there and get another fight with the UFC before my birthday on March 1st.
This is the 2016 UFC Preview Show, and it starts right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UFC 2016 Preview Show. Jon Anik alongside the former WEC champion Brian Stann, the UFC light heavyweight champ Daniel Cormier is here as well. And over the next hour, we're going to look ahead to the future of new featherweight champion Conor McGregor. Joe Rogan will preview the light heavyweight title bout between DC and the returning former champ Jon Jones. We will also make a few bold predictions for 2016, and we'll hear some of the fighters' New Year's resolutions. So guys, 2015, I mean, what a year it was. Maybe the best year, calendar year in UFC history. 7. I repeat, 7 UFC belts switched hands. Some UFC stars reached new plateaus, and countless incredible moments took place inside the world-famous octagon.
I love it! Wow! Oh, he got caught! Oh, beautiful left hook. The quickest finish in UFC championship history.
I'm gonna be a champion for life. Nobody gonna take this belt from me.
He lands one! Oh, he's out! Stop doubting me. You better join the team now. Daniel Cormier, light heavyweight champion! He's stopping! That's it! Fabricio Verdum! Thomas Almeida! By knockout! On the button! Big knee! Unbelievable!
I'm the champ. I'm here to stay.
Oh! Big shot from McGregor!
I was gonna prove to people that I'm a true fighter.
He is all over! Just like that! Oh, he's out. He's out. Right in the face! Kick to the body. Oh, Holm is the new champion. McGregor. Oh, just like that. We did it. Yeah.
So cool to see DC's reaction every time his teammate Luke Rockhold gets belted. Guys, we're going to try to narrow it down as best we can. Best moment of 2015 for you?
You know, for me, it's the win for Holly Holm. Her winning the Women's Bantamweight Championship over Ronda Rousey. And it takes away nothing from the former champ Ronda Rousey, but to see someone come in when the entire world was watching, all that pressure, and with the odds stacked against her, to come in and have a performance like that. And that's what it was going to take. She had to fight the perfect fight to beat the champion at the time, Ronda Rousey, and she did that. It is so hard to walk the walk in the octagon in that big of a moment and execute as well as Holly Holm did.
You know, man, we had a great year for myself and my gym. Obviously, Luke Rockhold's moment was great for me, but my moment, May 23rd, 2015, when I won the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship, man, it was a dream come true. I've worked so hard for so long to have my moment, to get the belt strapped around my waist and to beat a guy in Anthony Johnson who people thought was unbeatable at the time. I went into this fight as an underdog, got the job done, became the UFC Light Heavyweight Champion. It was a dream come true, man, and And pretty self-explanatory that that would be my moment of the year.
And of course, you followed that up with an amazing title defense against Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Probably a good honorable mention for you. You know, this was a hard exercise for me. I would say my moment of the year, though, ushering in yet another new market. Brian, you were there with me on the call. First show in the Philippines. As far as the Asian markets go, I don't know that we've ever had a better crowd than we had there in Manila. They were geeked to see the UFC there. And of course, you had superstars Frankie Edgar, Uriah Faber at the top of that fight card. Great fight card, top to bottom. Neil Magny with a big win that night against Hyun Gu Lim. So that was a special moment for me to take part in what was the UFC's first visit to the fight-crazed Philippines.
When Mark Munoz
Yes.
actually put his gloves down in the middle of the octagon, what a special moment for the people of the Philippines and for Mark Munoz, being of Filipino descent.
Yeah, it was definitely the best retirement I think we've ever seen come out of the sport. Him having that moment, the UFC stopping everything, him getting the microphone, really incredible.
Yeah, one of the few times you'll see me willingly hand off that microphone inside the octagon. All right, well, the three of us, along with Michael Bisping, as many of you know, got to experience UFC 194 from the desk. DC was octagon side, of course, as Luke Rockhold ended Chris Weidman's reign in dramatic fashion. Jacare Souza, Yoel Romero go back and forth. Uriah Faber still proving to be a threat in the bantamweight division, but largely the night belonged to the featherweights and the championship matchup between Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo.
And it was just incredible. You know, we talked earlier about Holly Holm and living in the moment. You know, Conor McGregor has created the biggest stage we've ever seen in the sport. He's built that. The numbers that are coming in are incredible. But he walked to that octagon like he already knew he won the fight. He was smiling, he was calm, and he talked about his timing and his distance, his range, and it was flawless. And yes, it was a 13-second KO, but it became because he was so focused when that bell rang, and that's really rare for a fighter in that kind of moment.
We talk about the moment when you're fighting Conor McGregor, and we talk about, is this gonna be too big for this guy? This is the norm for this guy. This guy has created this environment on multiple occasions now. He does it every time he makes that walk. When he makes that walk, there is a confidence about Conor McGregor that most people cannot even understand. The guy believes in himself, he believes in his skill, and the belief that he has in his team.
Yes.
To know that there is nothing that's going to make him change, make him leave his brothers down in Ireland. He believes in their preparation, he believes in himself, and it's showing every time he steps foot in the octagon.
And the skill set is almost as remarkable as that aforementioned self-belief.
Oh, my goodness, John. It's unbelievable to watch this guy, and he has that it factor. He has that star quality about him that most people wish that they had. He draws people in. I find myself watching videos of this kid riding bicycles through Long Beach. I find myself watching this kid just drive his car through Hollywood, and I'm laughing because he chooses the most awkward songs to listen to when he's driving. This guy has this it factor that draws
no
people
doubt.
in.
You just can't get enough of Conor McGregor. Made his UFC debut in 2013. Just remarkable how quickly all of this has happened. In terms of the records, look at this, UFC 194. How about that live gate in Las Vegas? The most watched weigh-in on FS1. Monster numbers across the board at UFC 189. And let's also not forget, back in January, 2.75 million viewers on FS1. So his rise has been quick. It has been dominant. It has been phenomenal. Brian Stann, overall, how do you explain what Conor McGregor has been able to do in captivating the masses so quickly?
You know, it's difficult. There's billions of people on the planet, and this guy has captivated a worldwide audience.
Yeah.
And he's been calculated, but then also very charismatic every single step of the way, showing just how natural it comes to him. He was very comfortable in front of the camera since the moment he came in, and a lot of that is because he knew and believed in his heart just how good he was. Everybody wanted to doubt him. He ran his mouth first, and everybody said, look, the first time this kid faces a real wrestler, he's over, he's finished, and he's shown us time and time again. This kid has skills, and this kid's skills are only getting better.
The thing about Conor McGregor is, when he says something, there is never a part in him that doesn't believe exactly what he's saying.
Right.
To explain his rise, you couldn't do it justice because what he's done has been so phenomenal. I've been guilty of saying it. Well, it's Dennis Seaver. Then he breaks the record for views on FS1. Then you say, well, Chad Mendez is coming on 2 weeks' notice instead of Jose Aldo. Hugest gate at the point in Vegas. I mean, the guy is just a phenomenon.
And it comes across as organic and not pre-scripted, as we've seen from other guys in the past. So the world right now belongs to Conor McGregor, and while the immediate future is not exactly clear, one thing is certain: life could not be a whole lot better for the Irishman at present. Here's the featherweight king, as well as UFC president Dana White, on the future of the man who has changed the game.
I would like to go up and face that 155-pound strap. So we'll see what's next. But then I also respect the fact that Frankie got that nice win last night. I'll sit down with Lorenzo, toast one of them ones, and see what's next.
The funny thing is that Kavanaugh said in the octagon he'll never make 45 again.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He said, I don't want him making that weight again. It's not good for him. You know, so they've been talking about going to 55, but you never know with Conor. Maybe Conor decided Frankie did look good and he would like to fight him.
All right, so we know Conor McGregor at some point has aspirations to move up to 155 pounds, where Rafael dos Anjos remains the man. If you were a paid advisor for Conor McGregor, and I hear it pays pretty well, how would you advise him now moving forward?
I'm telling him to stick around 145 pounds. It's not often you get the #1 contender to knock out his opponent in the first round the same weekend that you do the same to the current champion. I think there's a lot of momentum in that weight class. I think that will be the bigger money fight for Conor McGregor.
Stay at 145 because Rafael dos Anjos is a big guy who may present matchup problems for Conor. And answer the questions. People will still always find a way to question Conor McGregor because he looks so great against Aldo. Beat Frankie Edgar, the wrestler, the high-level wrestler on a full training camp, not a Chad Mendez that only had 3 weeks to prepare. A guy that is considered one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. You beat Edgar, there are no more questions.
Easy for you guys to say stay at 145. You don't have to cut the damn weight, right? As for Jose Aldo, and you wonder how the last few weeks have been for the former featherweight king, DC, where do you think Aldo goes here in 2016?
You know, man, it's so unfortunate that he lost in the way that he did because it almost kind of erases 10 years of just dominating the sport. The memory is of him laid out in the middle of the octagon, losing his belt to Conor McGregor. I think you match him up with a Max Holloway, a guy that's also on his way to challenging for a championship. If he wins, then he finds himself right back in the mix where he belongs, might I say, in the featherweight division.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, he was at the top for a long time. And sometimes when you're at the top that long, you lose your hunger, and maybe that's happened to Aldo. I think he goes out, he gets his timing back. He has not been very active the last few years defending his belt. He needs some time in that octagon. He needs to get back into his rhythm. You give him a guy like a Max Holloway or a Ricardo Lamas, somebody like that, and we see where he's at and see if he can go and then get the rematch with Conor McGregor.
All right, no such issues for his fellow Brazilian, Rafael dos Anjos. He remains the hunted, successfully defending his lightweight title for the first time. Who might be next for dos Anjos?
There's a lot of questions here, but, Anthony Pettis obviously is one of those guys, but I'd like to see Tony Ferguson. I think Tony Ferguson has had an outstanding run since coming off The Ultimate Fighter. Every time he enters the octagon, we're seeing massive improvements, and, his performances speak for themselves. His fights are incredible. His fight with Edson Barboza, one of the best fights of the entire weekend, in a weekend where we had 3 fight cards back to back to back.
The beauty of the 155-pound division is that there are a lot of fresh matchups. Pettis has not fought the champ. Ferguson has not fought the champ. Eddie Alvarez has not fought the champ. So all these are new matchups. I say give him the winner of Alvarez versus Pettis. Let's see if Rafael dos Anjos can beat another guy, a former champion. Obviously, he beat Pettis before, but rematch Pettis. Pettis is a guy that was on a Wheaties box. Pettis is a guy that has a lot of star power if he can get the job done.
Yeah, of course, Pettis fought dos Anjos at UFC 185 and relinquished the belt that night. He's jonesing for another crack at Rafael dos Anjos. Well, one thing we also know about 155 pounds, perennially one of the deepest weight classes in the UFC. So you guys got some options here. I need one lightweight fighter to watch in 2016.
Rashid Magomedov. We've had the opportunity to call some of his fights. Technically, this kid is outstanding everywhere. You talk to the coaches, American Top Team, and they're talking about how he beats up every single lightweight fighter they have in that gym, and they've got an extensive roster. There's no weak points whatsoever. He's a stoic guy. He doesn't talk a whole lot, but I'll tell you right now, no 155-pound fighter wants to get the call from Joe Silva saying he's next.
My guy is Michael Chiesa. I've shared a locker room with this kid, and I see the development from before when I've cornered guys and been in the locker room with him. He's more confident now. He's a long-time wrestler, but now his jiu-jitsu and his ground game is starting to match his ability to take people down. The strides that this guy has made since being on The Ultimate Fighter is unbelievable.
And I'm going to stay with that Ultimate Fighter live cast and go with James Vick. 8-0. Injuries have been a big part of the narrative when it comes to James Vick on the sidelines here once again due to a hip injury. Joe Silva says maybe March for his return, but with that frame and how he leverages it, James Vick can do big things if he can just stay healthy and get in that octagon 2 or 3 times in 2016. All right, coming up next, one of the best fighters to ever compete in the octagon makes his return in 2016, but will Jon Jones be able to reclaim his crown? Maybe DC has a thought or two. Stay with us.
Daniel Cormier, the new UFC light heavyweight champion. How's it feel, sir?
Joe Rogan, no disrespect to you or the 16,000 people in this arena, but I have a message for one man. Jon Jones, get your together. I'm waiting for you.
There it is from the new champ. Welcome back to the 2016 UFC preview show. Jon Anik, Brian Stann, Daniel Cormier, now joined by Ariel Helwani. So, DC, you sent Johnny Bones the message from the very start. Now here we are.
You know what, man? It's like every day of my life I want to compete against Jones. It doesn't matter if it's today, if it's tomorrow. From the moment I walked out of the octagon on January 3rd, I knew that him and I would share the octagon again, and I could fight him every day. As long as the sun rises in the morning, I'll be willing to fight Jon Jones.
All right, well, Jon Jones was the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world as the reigning light heavyweight king, but as Brian Stann boldly predicted on this very show a year ago, his legal troubles resulted in the UFC stripping him of his title and an accompanying indefinite suspension. But now Jon Jones is reinstated and ready to come back. It will be one of the most anticipated rematches in UFC history when Jones returns against Daniel Cormier. Now for a closer look, here's Joe Rogan.
One of the most exciting fights in 2016 is going to be the return of Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier has had 2 incredible fights. One where he won the title against Anthony Rumble Johnson.
And it's all over!
And then a dogfight with Alexander Gustafsson, where he won a 5-round decision where he was pushed to his limits. He is a far better fighter and a far more confident fighter than he was when he first fought Jon Jones. But make no mistake about it, Jon Jones is the man to beat at light heavyweight. Jon Jones is the most talented fighter I have ever seen enter into the octagon. When you talk about raw talent and ability, Jon Jones is uniquely talented. When he meets Daniel Cormier again inside the octagon in an attempt to regain his title, it will be a fight that will have mixed martial arts fans on the edge of their seat. It's one of the most important fights in mixed martial arts today, and I can't wait to see it.
I get nervous just thinking about that rematch. Brian, I know this might be a little bit awkward with your broadcast partner sitting right next to you, but how about some free coaching knowledge for the new champion? What does he need to do differently to beat Jones the second time?
Well, I'll tell you now, first and foremost, he's got to believe in himself and believe in his cardio that he can go 5 rounds. You know, in that fight, he was winning. He turned the tide of the fight. Round 1 was Jon Jones. Round 2 and 3, I thought, were Daniel Cormier. And then round 4, Daniel Cormier took it off. You know, when you saw him come back and when he faced Alexander Gustafsson, we saw Daniel Cormier have to really dig deep, and he was able to do that. Now he has that belief. Technically, he needs to do what he did in the middle of that fight with Jon Jones, which is get inside, but mesh all of his skills together. Don't abandon the takedown if he fails at first, because Jon Jones also has exceptional wrestling. But when you start tagging a guy and you get inside and you integrate your wrestling techniques with your striking, it makes it so much harder to defend. And I think if we see a higher pace, a man who believes and knows he can go 5 rounds hard, it could be a totally different fight against Jon Jones.
You know, the first time I fought Jones, it was a very good fight. You know, he fought well, and I tipped my hat to him. But it was the first time I dealt with adversity at 205. When I made this weight class, I fought Patrick Cummins. That fight lasted 1 minute. Then I fought Dan Henderson. Well, I was pretty much cruising the entire time against Dan Henderson. Then I fought Anthony, and I got tagged early. Then I fought Gustafsson, and I dealt with adversity and being at the weight class. I've been there 5 times now, and I've dealt with adversity in 3. So I will feel much better in the later rounds than I did in that first time. The first time, it was almost a shock to be getting controlled as the fight was going on, and getting my wrist controlled and taking damage in that fight against Jones the first time.
Ariel, you just spent some extended time with Jon Jones in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Where do you think he is at mentally as he works himself back into the fold?
Honestly, guys, I was blown away. I'm sorry to say, DC. A, he's in phenomenal shape. B, it seems like he really has things figured out at home, outside of the gym.
Yeah.
And we're used to, and you know this, Brian, you've trained, we're used to him getting out of shape between fights. I mean, his body, I mean, look at his Instagram. Just look at his Instagram and see what he's doing over there. He's very focused, and he said that promo that you pulled at UFC 187 was maybe the worst thing that you could have done, because that's when the clouds started opening up, and he said, all right, I need to get my belt back.
You see, that's the problem, though. My promo was the thing that motivated him. He's got his life in order at home now. I've had that. That never changed for me. My life was always in order at home. We are applauding a guy for doing things right. I'm going to kick that guy's ass, and I'll send him right back into a tailspin.
And I'm going to give you the final word on that as we move along. As many of you know, the UFC working tirelessly to get mixed martial arts legalized in New York State. The UFC brass still optimistic about an April show in the Empire State, D.C. What do you think it would mean to get Madison Square Garden done for the sport?
It would be amazing for the sport of mixed martial arts to hold an event in New York City. If this fight was to come off in New York, you got to have a big fight. Jones and I would fit the bill. This is where Ali and Frazier fought. This is the most magical arena in the history of sports. It would be huge for the UFC, and not only for the UFC, but for the state of New York to be able to hold more live sporting events in the city.
It's the one roadblock that we have not conquered yet, and I think that this sport needs it. I mean, I know some people who don't live in New York say, oh, who cares? Go somewhere else. Go to California. Go to Florida. It doesn't matter. No. The world's most famous arena is Madison Square Garden. It's the Mecca. We need to have UFC there, and we need to have, in my opinion, the biggest fight of 2016. A New Yorker, Jon Jones, coming back after this past year to fight his biggest rival in the place where Ali fought Frazier for the first time, March 8, 1971, the fight of the century. Oh, my God. I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
And even as a Boston guy, I will give you that on New York.
Without a doubt.
All right, let's turn our attention up a weight class now to the heavyweights. The belt changed hands in 2015. Fabricio Verdum, how about him, submitting Cain Velasquez in Mexico City. They'll face off again at UFC 196 this February.
Incredible. The heavyweight title the same weekend as the Super Bowl. Get ready. Cain Velasquez, who looked so dominant through the entirety of his career, made a massive mistake. Went down to Mexico City and disrespected what it means to fight at altitude. As a guy who's trained at altitude for much of his career, it makes a huge difference. But you also have to credit that man, Fabricio Verdum, for one of the best career resurgences, if not the best we've ever seen in the sport. This man went from a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a master of submissions, to being an outstanding striker. But I will tell you, talking to people at American Kickboxing Academy, except for this bias guy right here, they talk about how hungry that bad man Cain Velasquez is. I think we're going to see a different contender in Cain Velasquez in this fight.
For all the things that we did as a camp in terms of Cain Velasquez's preparation, Fabricio Verdum needs to be commended for doing everything right. Where we went left, he went right. Where we made mistakes, he did the right thing, and he fought an unbelievable fight. He withstood the storm. He withstood the initial burst that Cain Velasquez gave him, and he withstood it and ended up submitting Cain in the third round. Unbelievable accomplishment for Verdum, but I'm telling you, man, a Cain Velasquez without a championship is a dangerous Cain Velasquez.
And, you know, your head coach, Javier Mendez, has taken a lot of the blame for not getting to Mexico City soon enough. Well, got an opportunity to avenge that loss coming up Super Bowl weekend. All right, DC, another one of your AKA teammates is now in that championship spotlight. Luke Rockhold, about as productive at 2015 as any fighter on the roster, of course, capped by his dethroning of the former undefeated middleweight champion Chris Weidman. So here are the updated UFC middleweight rankings. A lot to digest here. Obviously, we know how strong this division is at the top. Ariel, what do you think the immediate future holds for the new champ?
Well, I know Luke is going to be mad at me for saying this, but I think it should be Yoel Romero. Look, I mean, look, he's the champion, and he chastised Chris Weidman for fighting guys who are past their prime. Now he wants to fight Vitor Belfort, who's coming off a win, or Dan Henderson, but just fought for the belt in May. It doesn't make any sense. Yoel Romero went out there and beat Jacare Souza. He deserves that title shot, and let's be honest, he's not getting any younger. So I want to see Romero versus Rockhold, and if Rockhold can beat Romero and Vitor wins his next fight, all right, fine. Then do the rematch. I know it means a lot to Luke Rockhold, but for now, he has to give that shot to the #1 contender. That's Yoel Romero.
Brian Stann, immediate future for Chris Weidman, the former champ.
Look, they set up UFC 194 like a middleweight tournament. I love it, and I think that Chris Weidman should have to take on Jacare Souza. I think that would be an awesome matchup for the fans. It would be a great fight for both of those guys to say, hey, we deserve the next shot at that title. I agree that Yoel Romero should be the next guy to challenge for the title.
All right, well, as we move now down a weight class in the welterweight division, certainly been fun watching a rejuvenated Robbie Lawler in this latest UFC run. Part of the likely fight of the year, by the way, against Rory McDonald in 2015. DC, a lot of people now looking ahead to this January title fight against Carlos Condit.
John, if you have a pulse, and I say Lawler-Condit, it has to raise, and it has to start racing, because this is the type of fight that you dream about as a fight fan. You know Carlos Condit is going to bring it every single time, and what Robbie Lawler has done in his return to the UFC is amazing. I remember when he fought Josh Koscheck, I thought it was an easy win. He finished him in the first round. His fight against Rory McDonald, the fight of the year. Carlos Condit looked phenomenal in stopping Thiago Alves. These are two of the best strikers and two of the meanest, most vicious guys in the UFC. This fight's going to be amazing.
Do me a favor at home. After you watch this show, go on UFC Fight Pass and watch UFC 194 and scroll to the point where they had the split screen of Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit.
Yeah.
That, in my opinion, was the greatest split screen in the history of split screens. They were so intimidating. That look on their face says it all about this fight. Two of the most hard-nosed, tough fighters in UFC history. Man, I can't wait for January 2nd.
They're extremely focused, they're extremely skilled, and very, very aggressive fighters. These guys take pride in putting on shows that people don't only just want to pay to see, but that are legendary. I mean, this is a fight that's so good that it could easily be my dream matchup for 2016. The only problem is it's already on the schedule.
And, of course, Tyron Woodley, guys, let's not forget about him. He was supposed to fight Johnny Hendricks a couple months ago. He says he wants that title shot. Don't talk to him about Damian Maia or anyone else in the division. He is waiting for the winner of this title fight on January 2nd. It's hard to argue with him. He's done a lot so far in the UFC.
All right, well, as we look ahead on this preview show, one thing we like to do is look at some maybe not so obvious guys near the top of the rankings, welterweight prospects, guys you'll have an eye on looking into 2016. I'm going to say Warlley Alves, the Brazilian, undefeated. You know, I think the Alan Jouban fight was a valuable learning lesson for him. A lot of people didn't think he won that fight, but was able to emerge, busted up, but still undefeated. And, man, a lot of people were picking Colby Covington a few weeks ago, and he disposed of him with his patented guillotine choke. So Warlley Alves, another Brazilian, I think, to keep an eye on here in 2016.
I'll tell you what, that's a tremendous pick. You know, I'm going to go with a guy who's been just absolutely fantastic as well, and Albert Tumanov. You know, a guy who continues to get better. People clamor to watch him fight. You know, he doesn't have the big personality, but he gets it done in the octagon. His high kicks are a blast to watch. You know, who could forget when he knocked out Matt Dwyer, a guy who's 6'5", with a high kick. Albert Tumanov coming in maybe a generous 5'10".
I like Neil Magny. He bounced back from a loss, beat Kelvin Gastelum down in Mexico, a profile fight, a fight to raise Kelvin Gastelum. He went in there, upset the party. Neil Magny will be challenging for a championship at some point.
In the words of the great Roy Jones, y'all must have forgot about Rory McDonald. I know he's coming off a loss, but every time he loses, he comes back stronger. This time next year, we're going to call him UFC welterweight champion Rory McDonald.
Yeah, I thought those were words we already would have uttered. We'll see if 2016 will be the year for Rory McDonald. All right, coming up next, another king without a crown will return in 2016. Dominick Cruz lost his belt with ever actually losing in the octagon. He'll look back at what it feels like to rightfully be his own in Beantown on January 17th. Stay with us.
TJ Dillashaw versus Dominick Cruz. You got a very interesting matchup. You got Dominick, who is the longtime bantamweight champion in the WEC, first bantamweight champion in the UFC. Very dynamic fighter, well-rounded. But you know, you got TJ Dillashaw, who's just been on the rise, just a meteoric rise to stardom. I mean, I feel like he's a better version of Dominick.
Oh! Big shot trying to finish!
TJ Dillashaw has adopted this new style of switching stance and movement, which is pretty much the style that Dominick Cruz has been doing for years. So I think when you put the two up against each other, I think Dominick Cruz is going to take it.
Both are amazing fighters. I think Cruz is a serious fighter, but the way Dillashaw's handled himself the last couple of fights is I've got to back him. You know, I think he's my favorite at the moment.
I got to go with the Dominator on this one. He has a great head on his shoulders, and he's the real champion. So I think he's going to pull it off.
There's both such great fighters, have incredible movement. It's really who's going to last the longest and be able to pick the other opponent apart.
I might have to give the slight edge to Dominick Cruz because you know what, you're coming back, you're hungrier than ever. But who knows? Come game day, you know, it's who shows up.
Ring rust is something real, and it'll be very interesting to see how it affects Dominick. I really can't pick, I can't say, but I'll definitely be watching anxiously to see what happens.
All right, with that great backdrop, we welcome you back to the 2016 UFC preview show. Jon Anik, Daniel Cormier, Brian Stann on hand here. So this bantamweight division, fellas, about to get wicked interesting. Boston, Massachusetts, January 17th. TJ Dillashaw putting his belt on the line against a man who never lost it, Dominick Cruz.
They go to Beantown. You got to be excited about that, Anik. This division has never been more interesting when you put these two guys inside of the octagon, the originator, the dominator, against the guy that he feels like took his style. He even says that TJ Dillashaw doesn't even know what he's doing in regards to fighting as he does. The longtime champion in Cruz against the guy that is now showing that he can rule this division for a long time in Dillashaw. The style matchup is great. The backstory is great. This is a phenomenal fight.
You know, a lot of times ring rust plays a major factor in fights when you see guys deal with this long a layoff. I'll tell you what, though, if there's one guy that it won't affect, it's Dominick Cruz. We all tease him in the studio about the chip that resides on his shoulder, but that chip is what keeps that man so hungry. For a guy who's achieved as much as he's achieved in martial arts, you would never be able to tell because he's not arrogant about it. He still wants more. He's got more hunger, honestly, than any champion I know in the UFC. And so forget the ring rust. Throw it out the window. This kid is hungrier for this fight than any other fight he's ever had in his career.
Well, this bantamweight division has never been healthier entering 2016 as we show you the updated top 10. Certainly Uriah Faber still relevant after his win over Frankie Saenz, but a lot of young talent and up-and-comers in this division chasing Dillashaw and Cruz.
It's incredible. I mean, Uriah Faber just won his latest fight. He's sitting right in the wings and obviously has a great narrative with Dominick Cruz, but you got Thomas Almeida has looked absolutely lights out. Rafael Santel, before he was hurt, was supposed to get the next shot, and he's beat TJ Dillashaw. He's the last guy to beat him.
Yeah.
So really impressive. And then the young guys, you know, you guys like Jimmy Rivera that are coming up, Aljamain Sterling. I mean, we've got some studs in this weight class, and I think that we could see a title change hands several times in the next couple of years.
If you look at these rankings and you think about the young guys, you look down at number 10, and there's Johnny Eduardo. Aljamain Sterling destroyed him.
Yeah.
Submitted him in the second round. Aljamain Sterling is my guy. He has the athleticism. He has the look. He has the ability, and he looks like a future UFC champion. Aljamain Sterling at number 5. That's the guy I'm looking for.
And you also got Cody Garbrandt, who will fight John Lineker in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in February. So bantamweight division in strong current form entering 2016. All right, now we go down to the flyweights here quickly. Of course, it's all about Demetrius Johnson at 125 pounds. At present, the longest reigning UFC champion with 7 straight defenses. Now, all signs point toward the Olympic gold medalist, the wrestler Henry Cejudo, as the next opponent for DJ. Your thoughts on that potential matchup?
I'll tell you, it's rare we see the kind of consistency that you see from a champion in Demetrius Johnson. Every time he goes out there, his technique is fantastic. His cardio is incredible. However, he's taking on a guy in Henry Cejudo who's the ultimate competitor, a guy who won gold in the Olympics. And you know, when you look back and you talk to people like Daniel Cormier about what it was like in that 2008 Olympic team, they say when the lights shine brightest in the biggest tournament of his life, Henry Cejudo rose up several levels to win the gold. He was not supposed to win that year. So people need to be careful counting out Henry Cejudo going against the most consistent champion we have. This kid is a guy who rises to the occasion.
You don't want to count out Henry Cejudo. The guy finished 35th in the World Championships the year before, winning an Olympic gold medalist. But when you talk about pound for pound, you talk about a guy whose skills transcends weight classes. DJ fought for the Bantamweight Championship against Dominick Cruz, and now he's the long-reigning flyweight champion. This dude's the best fighter on the planet, regardless of weight division, and it's hard to pick against him, even when he's fighting a guy that was a teammate of mine, in Henry Cejudo.
All right, well, 2015 also a massive year for the women of the UFC. The entire world took notice when the massive underdog Holly Holm dethroned the face of female fighting, the A-lister Ronda Rousey at UFC 193.
It was incredible. When you want to talk about execution, when the lights shine brightest and rising up a level, we've never seen anything like this, specifically in women's mixed martial arts. Nobody believed Holly Holm had a chance. Now, statistically, she wasn't the biggest underdog we've ever seen, but in recent MMA history, she absolutely absolutely was. And she went out there and executed a near flawless game plan, and then now silenced anybody who thinks that Ronda Rousey even has a chance if they were to rematch. That's how good and how much better Holly Holm got for that particular fight.
You know, watching this fight right here, you forget about it if you're not watching it every day, how much better Holly Holm looked than Ronda Rousey. I mean, it looked like she was in a completely different class than the long-reigning champion Ronda.
It's interesting. It's a good point when you watch that footage a few weeks removed. You know, Rousey almost looks like the rookie, sort of a crazy visual just there. So as we look ahead to a potential rematch at UFC 200 in July, Ronda Rousey, at least right now, holding as the favorite. How do you see the rematch?
You know, I don't see her. I don't think she should be the favorite. Honestly, Holly Holm beat her by such a large gap. I don't believe it's enough time for Ronda Rousey to make up the difference, for her to improve in the areas she needs to, because ultimately the bigger, stronger, faster athlete on that night was Holly Holm, and I think 7 months from now, 8 months from now, whatever they do, whenever they sign that fight to be, she's still going to be.
All right, moving down now to the strawweight division, the champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk put together a Fighter of the Year worthy 2015. A lot of competition in that category, but she won the UFC title, then made 2 successful defenses. Looks like her 3rd title defense will come against a familiar foe in Claudia Gadelha.
You know, the first fight was so close. Many people thought Claudia won the fight. She didn't. She trained at AKA before that fight. We haven't seen her since, but I've seen Joanna Jędrzejczyk improve by leaps and bounds since the first fight. But Claudia Gadelha won a very competitive fight in her last start.
And Gadelha has been living the life of the challenger. Feels like she won that fight. She's been hungry. She's been training. This woman can get it all done everywhere. She's an outstanding striker. She's a very good wrestler, and she's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the ground. While Joanna Champion's been living the life of the champion and stardom and on TV, this woman's been at home training, and how she feels getting better. This is going to be an awesome rematch.
And Jędrzejczyk has dealt with a lot of injuries, especially to those hands. You wonder how long those are going to hold up. But as we look ahead in this division, obviously Gadelha is going to get the next shot, but what other contenders might be on the horizon?
Even though she's still very young and only has fought a number of times in the UFC, Rose Namajunas.
Yeah.
The way that she looked in her last fight was amazing. People thought Paige Van Zandt was a person to keep an eye on, and she completely dominated. She was Paige Van Zandt before Paige Van Zandt as she left The Ultimate Fighter. She is maturing now. She is finding her stride inside the octagon on a win streak. She'll challenge for that belt soon.
You know, another girl's got more experience, but is still growing. We saw in her last fight is Tecia Torres, known as the striker, cutting angles on people all the time. We saw in her last fight, she is focused a lot on her wrestling. Physically, she's very strong, and a woman who can go out there and be a little faster possibly than Joanna Champion and potentially take her down can be a threat. I think Tecia Torres has good experience, and she's only getting better.
And certainly that was a big obstacle for her to close out 2015, and she did so with flying colors. All right, coming up next, we have reviewed UFC fighters at the top of the divisional mountain. Now we examine which fighters we think can make the climb to the top in 2016. And it's always important to set goals, right? So we asked some top UFC fighters what their New Year's resolutions were for 2016. Take a look.
We're gonna end out 2015 with a bang. 2016 is gonna be an explosion.
I want to keep fighting, I want to win, of course, and I want to have that title shot in 2016.
2016 is coming. I have really big plans. I want to defend my title for 3 times.
I want to fight and I want to be in there as much as possible in 2016, and I'm excited to get it going again.
My New Year's resolution for 2016 is to make some noise in this division.
I'm a recent father, so my New Year's resolution is just to be the best dad I can be.
Spend more time with my daughter and be the best mom in the world.
My New Year's resolution is to get closer to the UFC World title shot.
I've gone from one fight to the next and back in training camp, so I really want to force myself to take a vacation.
My New Year's resolution is to go out there and get another fight before my birthday on March 1st.
Whatever God has for me, that's what I'm looking for.
2015 has been an amazing year for emerging talent in MMA, and I believe 2016 will be even better. Yair Rodriguez is one of the most exciting young guys in MMA today. He's wild, he's creative, he has all sorts of wild kicks as well as some really spectacular grappling and submissions, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what this young guy can do. Sage Northcutt is only 19 years old and already has a ton of people talking about the massive potential this young man has. In his UFC debut, he looked absolutely sensational, and the sky's the limit for this young kid. Thomas Almeida is the real deal, and we really got to see that in the Brad Pickett fight, where we saw Thomas Almeida overcome adversity. He got rocked, he got hurt, and in the very next round, he came out with a flying knee and knocked Brad Pickett out in a spectacular come-from-behind knockout victory that shows you what this young man is capable of. Joe Duffy is one of the most promising prospects to come out of Ireland. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this young guy can pull off inside the octagon. His technique is sensational. He has an incredible mixture of grappling and striking, and he is the last man to hold a victory over Conor McGregor.
This kid is a finisher.
Cody Garbrandt is another very promising young prospect. He has spectacular boxing technique, really good takedown defense, and excellent grappling from all of his training at Team Alpha Male. And every time we see him inside the octagon, he looks more promising. 2016, it's a great time to be an MMA fan.
All right, welcome back. Jon Anik alongside Brian Stann, Daniel Cormier, and Ariel Helwani. So when you look at this roster, guys, 500-plus fighters, a lot of prospects across these 10 divisions. Need one can't-miss prospect for 2016.
Jimmy Rivera. He can do it all inside the octagon. He's massive for the bantamweight division, has big-time power.
My guy is Islam Makhachev. Forget the last fight. I understand he lost, but it was because of his insistence of jumping up so many levels. He didn't want to fight anybody at his level, so he ended up fighting somebody so high. The guy can do it all. Great grappler, great sambo guy, Islam Makhachev.
Thomas Almeida, 24 years old, 20-0, 3 straight finishes, huge prospect at 135.
And I'll go with Mirsad Bektic. You know, he was a popular pick in this category going into 2015. Disappointing he didn't get the chance to fight Tatsuya Kawajiri towards the end of the year. But Mirsad Bektic, you know, draws comparisons to George St. Pierre. I'm buying Bektic stock in 2016. All right, guys. Now is time for the hot seat. Significant strikes. I'm hitting you with some rapid-fire questions. You hit me back with some answers. Pretty simple here. And let's bring it with some conviction, all right, Mr. Stann, greatest living American or whatever they call you. Buy or sell, former welterweight star George St. Pierre returns to the octagon in 2016.
Sell. He's rich. He doesn't need to be messing around with us.
You know what, man? I'm going to sell, too. I don't think George St. Pierre needs fighting anymore. He's done.
Sell. I think he's done.
All right, fact or fiction, the former pro wrestler turned UFC fighter CM Punk will win his UFC debut whenever it comes.
Sell. Now, I think he'll fight, but I don't think he's going to win his debut.
Buy. I'm a huge WWE guy, and I have to believe my man, the best in the world, CM Punk gets the job done.
The words right out of my mouth, buy. CM Punk will win in his debut.
And your bold prediction in 2015 was that he would win his UFC debut, but now you've softened your stance.
The injuries show that his body has some mileage on it.
And that was fact or fiction, guys. I know you're into that buy-sell thing.
I was just following.
Oh, we kind of liked it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
All right, how about this one? Over under 12 months from now, the UFC holds an event in New York.
Under.
Under. I'm hoping, man. I'm hoping that we get to fight in New York City.
I hate to be the curmudgeon. Over. It's not happening.
All right, next up, true or false, Anderson Silva not only returns, but eventually fights for a UFC title in 2016.
False. I think the middleweight division is just too talented right now. Far different than the one that I fought in when he was the reigning champion.
True. Anderson Silva will fight for the UFC middleweight championship because he'll come back, get a win, and then he'll be served up on a platter to Luke Rockhold.
False. There are too many killers right now at 185. He's not in that discussion anymore.
All right, next up, buy or sell, Nick Diaz will be able to come to an agreement with the Nevada State Athletic Commission over his suspension for that failed drug test involving marijuana and get back in the octagon in 2016.
Sell. I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission is just a little too stubborn for that.
True. Because they already reduced true, Stan. Because they already reduced his suspension, I believe that they are willing to talk and listen. Nick Diaz will fight next year.
I'm not sure which word to say at the top. I'm just going to say Nick Diaz will fight in 2016.
Yeah,
it's true, bud.
Well, that's good news. I hope so. I'm rooting for
powerful Daniel Cormier. Does whatever he wants, whether he's got the belt with him.
Well, it was.
Whether it makes sense or not at all.
All right, still to come on the preview show, we willingly put ourselves on the hot seat once again. Some bold predictions for 2016, and you may want to write these down. Stay with us.
In 2016, I just want to improve at everything. Be a better person, be a better fighter, be a better dad.
I'm not huge on just a New Year's resolution. I think year-round I want to always be trying to be a better person in every way. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, everything, and maybe eat less French fries.
2016, I want to improve who I am now and keep going forward.
My New Year's resolution for 2016 would be to buy a new house.
My New Year's resolution is to break into the top 10 in the UFC heavyweight division.
My New Year's resolution for 2016 would be stay just as active as I was in 2015, 2014.
Be a better person every day and continue living life every day as if it were my last.
All right, welcome back to the 2016 UFC preview show. Jon Anik here with Brian Stann and Daniel Cormier. So, guys, at least right now, we can safely match up more than half of the current UFC champions with the likely #1 contender. So, out of all those matchups that are at least on paper, which title fight has you most excited?
With by a mile is Robbie Lawler taking on Carlos Condit, two of the most fun fighters in the history of the sport to watch, and that fight is scheduled. I cannot wait to watch it.
You know, you put me up here as an analyst, but then I also fight. So how do I pick against my own fight? I'm most excited about me getting an opportunity to fight Jon Jones again. I cannot wait. I love punching Jon Jones in the face. I get another opportunity to do it. I'm going to punch him multiple times in the face, all right?
Well, you know where I'm going. Dateline, Boston, Massachusetts. Dominick Cruz returning to get the belt that he never lost against the current champ, TJ Dillashaw. I sat between those two a couple weeks ago, and it was just fireworks. I cannot wait to see them close the octagon door behind Dominick Cruz and TJ Dillashaw. All right, so outside of the already booked title fights, guys, give me a dream matchup for 2016.
You know, for me, we've talked a lot about Jon Jones and can he beat the heavyweight champion. I'd love to see Jon Jones take on the winner of Fabricio Verdum and Cain Velasquez. I've seen him in the gym throw heavyweights around. So I have a feeling that he'd surprise some people in that weight class.
Won't happen. I'm going to beat him, then he's going to go up and lose to Cain Velasquez. The fight that I'm so excited about is Conor McGregor. I'm always excited to see Conor McGregor fight, but match him up with Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's the fight I want to see. Two countries behind two guys is going to be amazing.
All right, and I'm going to say, and don't laugh me off the stage, Brian Stann, Shogun Rua, a main event. Joe Silva's on board, by the way. Stan still has some fight left. I feel like he can beat anybody outside the top 15 at 185.
The guy
right
needs
now,
a pool
Stan,
anyway.
Shogun,
Go ahead and
Rua.
get a fight, Stan. Come on.
All right, guys, before we say goodbye, we got to quickly get to bold predictions. Your bold prediction for 2016.
And this, I'm going on a huge limb here, but I think Joanna Champion, TJ Dillashaw, and Fabricio Verdum all lose their titles in 2016.
Wow. My bold prediction, in a division of absolute assassins, Robbie Lawler will not only defend against Carlos Condit, he'll defend that championship 2 more times next year. 3 successful defenses for Robbie Lawler.
Wow, and my bold prediction is going to be that Frankie Edgar will reluctantly move down to 135 pounds and challenge for the UFC bantamweight title. Try to take care of business at 45 first, but Frankie Edgar could at some point be a 3-division champion. All right, we thank you for joining us as we look back on another amazing year for the MMA leader and look ahead to the possibilities for 2016. With that, for Brian Stann, Daniel Cormier, and Ariel Helwani, Jon Anik saying so long for now. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for watching.